Hello, good afternoon. This is Jenny McFarland with the Tucson Audubon Society, and I wanted to touch base with everyone today on the 2021 Desert Purple Martin Project season. So it's July right now, 2021, and we've had quite a successful pilot year last year in 2020, establishing what we were going to do with these martins. The desert purple martins are pretty different from the eastern martins, vastly understudied compared to their eastern counterparts. And it was quite an interesting ride last year, trying to learn along the way and figure out what we were going to do into the future. It was some trial and error at first, but we have a pretty now focused and I think really exciting protocol for this year. So I wanted to touch base with you all, the whole team, and go through some new resources I have available for everybody, as well as where you can find that and what will be happening this season. There was a very in-depth video that was done, I think last week, about the upcoming project and talked about the background of the project and all that. That's not what this is. This is a short video to just sort of go over some of the resources for you guys as a crew to go out and observe these purple martins during the monsoon season of 2021. So here we go. So I'm going to share my screen now, and here we go, share screen, this one. All right, so where everything can be found is, one will be in the link I send you in the email, but if you need to ever find it without going into your email, we have a hub here on the Tucson Audubon Society website. It's tucsonaudubon.org/Martin Project. You can also just Google Tucson Audubon Society Purple Martins, and this will also pop up, but this is the main page, and it's this one here that says Desert Purple Martin Project. There's a landing page that just is tucsonaudubon.org Purple Martin, which is more meant for just sort of like members to just sort of highlight, wow, we have these cool birds. But this one, the Desert Purple Martin Project page, is the one that is meant for us, for the team of volunteers and staff that are investigating these birds. So we put some good links in here. We have the Desert Purple Martin Project 2020 results and findings. So if you want to go through everything that was found last year, it's all there, and it's done almost in like nature journaling format in a way, but also has links to some of the statistics we did on the amount of data we were able to get. So that's if you want to just review what happened last year. And then I have just some information, like a little video of me trying to promote the project and just some sort of general info. But then I have here ways to participate. And like I'm going to show you in a minute, I've coalesced everything into one protocol Word document where all these same links are there, but they're also here on this, available to anyone in the public on this Tucson Audubon site. So I have some links here, one to sign up to join the team, two, if you see here purple martins, report them here, reporting a nesting colony for the link to a form, and then if you find a feather or a dead purple martin, please let us know. And that again is a good reminder for everybody. If you do find purple martin feathers or an entire carcass of a dead martin, please let me know, because that could be very important for our partners up at NAU, Northern Arizona University, who are doing lab work on feathers and dead purple martins. A lot to be discovered there, so it's pretty important if you do find one that you let me know. Let's see, I have then learn more, and there's just some info about the birds, general ID. This goes to outside links, photos and recordings. This goes to eBird. And then just some general info about their migration, just trying, in case people stumble upon this site, just trying to let people learn more about these really cool birds. But then it's down here where it's really important. I have this resources for project crew members, a little video I made last year, sort of describing how to go up to a Saguaro and do observations. So that can be helpful if you haven't seen that from last year. But then I have here, this is the most important one here, and this is the protocol document. So this link has not changed, it's still the same link, but what's happened is I've changed the document quite a lot. So this document is what that link goes to. I'll also put this in the email to you all, but this is going to be our main protocol document. And I felt like I was getting too many documents that were different from each other. So I've coalesced everything into one. So no matter what level you're helping at, And that video, that long video I did last week explaining what was like sort of a preview of the upcoming season, really goes into this at great length, all the different levels. But for our purposes here, we'll go through sort of the basic levels. But I put everything in one document now. I think this will be better. And so because now it's a much larger document, I have a little table of contents right here. So it heads off with some resources. So important video links, if you you saw something and you're having trouble finding it, this will be a good, this is where I'm going to keep all those links together in one place. So the video presentation preview of the 2021 Purple Martin project, like that's the one I was just talking about, where I went in a lot of detail about what's going on for this coming season. It's a bit like a volunteer orientation. So if you weren't at that presentation, if you didn't see that, here's a link to the video on the YouTube channel for Tucson Audubon. I have here a link to the map. This is our map of our places people have reported martins, as well as our nests that have been found are all on the same map. It's the same map as last year. It's just been updated for this year. Link to instructional video from nest monitoring, lots of good info. It's from last year. And then another, a link to that main Tucson Audubon page we were just looking at. And then I have a link to the stages in development nesting photo guide. I also included that at the bottom of this page, but if you want like a printer friendly version, that's what that link goes to. Data submission online form, and then the 2020 results again are linked here. Now I made this little table of contents so you can just sort of, if you want to, you can click on one of these links, it'll take you to that point in the document. So that can be really helpful in a big long document. So that it's a table of contents that is also active links. So I have here intro and background, a little bit about the martins again. It's a little bit more detailed than what was on the Tucson Audubon website, but it's similar information, but maybe a little more detailed. And then I have here the different ways to help with this study. So there's 4 levels that one can help at, and they increase in intensity throughout sort of what your commitment is and sort of the intensity of what you're doing as a volunteer. So level 1 is reporting desert purple martin sightings, and this is great. So this can be someone who just is out birding and they see some martins either roosting or just hanging out somewhere. I just want to report the fact they saw some purple martins. This can also be any of us. If someone on the crew who's doing level 4, doing endoscoping on a nest, but is somewhere else and they notice martins, but it's not a convenient location for them, or they're in the middle of doing something else, you can still report that as a level 1 sort of protocol. And this is kind of a short section because it just basically says you can report purple martins either using eBird. So we will be checking eBird a lot throughout this season. So putting anything on eBird is really very helpful. So you can just report to eBird, or I have a link here to the Desert Purple Martin Sightings Report. And that's this one with this flying martin at the header. And this is real basic. It's just a few questions. Who are you? Where were you? What did you see? It's basically what eBird would document, but I have it here available for people who don't use eBird. They can still then make a sighting. eBird is a very good way to do it as well, though. So then there's level 2, report nest or roost, and it only requires 1 visit. So this is a way that is actually, you can help, that is such a small commitment of time, and it can even kind of be an incidental report. Like if you're out hiking and you see a nesting pair of purple martins at a saguaro, if you know what we're asking for, you can get all this information using your smartphone, and it's incredibly helpful. We need more data on on the heights of nesting holes and the direction, like the compass orientation that they face, because this is going to really help us get more data to do statistics to try to figure out sort of what is the average. Do they look for a specific height or direction, or do they not? Is it totally random? Our data is inconclusive at this point. So finding, if you do run across these situations with nesting martins or roosting martins, reporting this can be incredibly helpful. So I have here a lot of detailed information about what it's going to ask, but level 2, reporting a nest or roost, 1 visit only needed. So you're out and about, you find martins. We want to know the location, like the coordinates of your nest, the nesting saguaro, the height of the nesting hole. So I have here a note. You can estimate or use a free app on your smartphone. I have a section at the end of this protocol about apps, which we'll talk about when we get there, but there are some apps that can really help you on determining height, believe it or not, using your smartphone. You can also use like a rangefinder or like a laser measuring tape. I have one of those that I'm using, but that will often can be programmed to do like the height of, like, you shoot the bottom of an object and the top of an object, and it can calculate the height of the object. It turns out your smartphone can do that as well. And then, of course, the direction of the nesting hole with compass direction. And there's a lot of free apps that can help you with this. You can also use GPS, and you can use an actual compass too if you have one and you know how to use them. But I do have a very important note about doing the direction, which is our form will then ask you too which strategy you used to record the direction, the compass direction. Is it the direction of the hole? Like if you are standing in front of the saguaro and you're using a compass app or your compass to then, you're standing directly in front of the nesting hole, are you measuring the compass direction between you and the hole, like what direction you're facing as you're facing the hole? That can often be a lot easier to document than the other option. And it's fine. Either is fine. So the other option would be, if you're imagining the little purple martin looking out of the hole, what direction is she facing? So either is fine, but I need to know which it is. The way I've been doing it, I realized, was I've been standing in front of the saguaro, looking at the hole and documenting that compass direction. And either will work. And the way these apps work, that can often be the easier one to capture. But I just need to know which it is, because if I'm facing, so we can standardize them when we do our analysis. So that's really important from here on out. Level 3, level 2, 3, and 4. If you're going to do direction and measure that, we need to know which of those two it is. And so there's a question on the online forum asking you that. So just knowing that it's going to ask you that is good to know. And then any other observations or behaviors. So then I have here, this can be reported in the report, nest, or roost form, which is this one. So it's the one that has the little martin sitting on top, report, nest, or roost. And it asks some questions, the same questions we just went over. If you are reporting a nest, please include as much information. And then you can also, has the option to report a photo. Now it says, do you have a nest to report? This is another change I just made on our online forums to try to, because I added a lot more questions, but some of them are really dependent on whether or not something has happened, like you have a nest. So I've split them into sections and within those forms and made it situation based on the answer. So if you hit yes, it takes you to a section where you can enter information about the nest. If it says, if you say no, then it just goes to the end of the survey. So I'm trying to make this as easy as possible on people. So that's how that one works. And then if you go further down the protocol, there's level 3, nesting observations, non-endoscope, using multiple visits. So I have a note here. Please note, level 3 and 4 are using the same online data form. I'm not separating them out, which also means too, I like this idea because one, what your information you're gathering about using an endoscope and not using endoscope are incredibly similar, but it's just endoscope gives you that extra level of information on what's visually happening inside the nest. But all sorts of information like what the martin's behavior is outside of the saguaro and whether they're carrying food and all that, and the location and the details about the saguaro is all the same between level 3 and level 4. And also sometimes you can be using an endoscope some weeks and not other weeks, or like some visits and not other visits. So I like the idea of just being able to enter all your info on the same form. Just keep it as simple and I think like streamlined as possible for us. So I have some info about how to be in the desert looking at martins. And this is really good to read through. It's also captured in that video I filmed out in the desert last year. But, and then I have some info here about exact nesting location information. And this is very similar to what happened in the form before, but I want you to know the coordinates of your saguaro, have a photo of your saguaro or a sketch. Photo is preferred, where you're indicating where the nesting hole is. So you can use some sort of like screen drawing program or something to have a circle or an arrow pointing at, okay, this is the hole. And this is gonna be really important as we go year to year to determine if they're using the same hole year to year. There's a suspicion that they do, but we would be great if we could prove it for the first time in science that this happens. I think they do, but we got to prove it. So we have to carefully document exactly which hole they're using. And the compass direction, again, it's going to ask whether it's from your perspective, looking at the hole from the facing the saguaro, or from the martin's perspective, looking out of the hole. Height of the saguaro. Okay, and then I have some other questions too, which is, what is the saguaro's relationship to a wash? So keep track of that when you're out there. Is it, and I have options on the form, is it in a wash, next to a wash, near a wash, or not near a wash at all? And this is an interesting question that's come up over last year. There could be a connection there, so we need to be gathering that info. What is your saguaro's relationship with open water, such as ponds, lakes, golf courses? Is there open water near the saguaro? Please describe it. And then any other notes or observations. So this set of information about the saguaro itself is not going to change throughout the season. Like when you go and visit your nest multiple times throughout the summer, you only need to document the exact nesting hole and the height of the saguaro and all that. It only needs to happen once. It doesn't have to be your first visit either. It can be your first visit. It does not have to be your first visit. So the way I've done the form, we'll go through that in a minute. The way I've done the online reporting form is you can skip that section if you've already entered it for that saguaro. So now you can also access it easily if you want to add more information or enter it again, or you haven't entered it yet and it's your third visit and now you feel like you have the right tools to gather that info. Either way is fine, but I didn't want to have all those questions there, making people answer them again and again and again. So it's a section that you can easily skip within the online Google form, but they are there to guide you to make sure we have to get this information at least once. And when we get into the second half of the season, I'll be checking to make sure we have it all, because if we don't, then there's still time to gather that info. So this only has to be entered once, all the information about the saguaro. But then there's questions about the state of the birds. Like you can click breeding codes of what you've seen, as well as if you are using an endoscope, what age the chicks are at, that kind of information. So that's there for every visit. But this saguaro information that doesn't change over time, hopefully, is only once. So I have here some things to keep in mind. This is similar to last year, like don't be aware of snakes, watch out for biocrust, watch out for other nesting birds. We don't want to disturb them. So then I have here level 4, which is using an endoscope for multiple visits. So of course everything moved because it's a Google document. Stop it. There we go. Okay. So level 4, and I have here this thing that you really need to keep in mind is that level 4 is building off of level 3. So I don't want to just repeat all that information again and clutter up this document and make it confusing. So level 4 builds on top of level 3. So all protocols and information from level 3 needs to be kept in mind for the level 4, which is nesting observations with an endoscope and requiring multiple visits. You also need to have done the Tucson Audubon training on how to use an endoscope safely, both for your safety, the safety of the birds, and the safety of the saguaro. You have to have attended that training to use this equipment. I do have some equipment that is available for borrowing. So I have 4 sets currently, and I have 3 more sets on order that will be coming that can be checked out. And I do have those available for checkout. And many of them are out right now with volunteers, which is great. So you can come and get a set. If you'd like to buy your own set, that's also fine. But to be using it for this project, you have to have gone through the training, because then I've applied to add those people to our permit to do this. If you missed the training and you really want to do it, please let me know, and we can see if we can sort something out to do maybe a private training or something. So just let me know. But here's some examples of some of the images that I was able to get last year using an endoscope. It's pretty cool. You can look inside and see pretty closely what age the chicks are at, which I have information about a little bit in this moment here. So I have a spreadsheet to reserve an endoscope, and I'm also using that to keep track of who has which sets of equipment. A manual about the scope. So then there's a lot of really detailed info that we went over during our training workshop, but it's here as well. I put it all together. That was a separate document before, but now it's here together. And a note about the Endoscope app. This was recently discovered by Melina on the crew, on the team. Some good info about, there's 2 different apps by the company that makes the endoscope, and some info about them. And then I also added this to the same document, the Purple Martin Chick Aging Guide. So we got this information from Purple Martin Conservation Association. These photos are of eastern purple martins, but it's going to be pretty darn close for these guys, we hope. It really should be. They are the same species. It's just different subspecies. So this helps you figure out what you're looking at if you do get an endoscope photo and try to age them by what date. Now, the form online is going to ask you of these major categories, day 1 through 5. So you don't have to know, we don't have to figure out exactly what day it is. We're looking more for categories, day categories, age categories. So 1 through 5, 6 through 9, 10 through 14, and as well as some descriptions of what those different categories look like. It's pretty cool, pretty great information. Thank you, Purple Martin Conservation Association. And then this last page is helpful apps and examples of field procedures. I right now have my information on here. If you have apps that you think work really well for this project, please let me know. I use an Android system, so I'm especially looking for information about iPhone or Apple. So if you have apps that you think work really well for this, let me know. If you need recommendations on apps to use in the field, this is where you should look, and we will be adding to this over time. So this is an online living document that I can edit, and it changes over time. And then you can see those changes in real time. Procedures that team members have developed. I have here my field procedure that I was developed last summer, really doing this a lot and kind of juggling all my different equipment and trying to figure out how to do this. This is the procedure that I ended up settling on. And if you have a procedure that you really like, that you would like to share with other people, please let me know and email me that, and we'll add it to the document, and that can help other team members figure out how to do this best. So that's our online protocol right now. It's changed a bit from what I had before, and I really wanted to go over that with you. So thank you. And then I also have, just want to go over real quick here. This is the field online. This is the form to enter your observations once you're done. Once you've gone out into the field and you have your information, and you can then enter all your detailed information here. So this is the right form. It says Purple Martin Crew Detailed Observation Entry. Now I had that linked in the protocol. I haven't linked more than once, but right at the beginning when it says like for level 3 or level 4, right at the beginning it says 3 and 4 using the same online data form. That's a link to this data form. It's also linked on that Tucson Audubon website page as well as towards the bottom. But this is the only one we're using. If you're doing level 3 or 4, this is the form that you should be using. So it does require your email. So let me just do this and show you. And then you have to put in your name, the name of the saguaro or nest or roosting area that you're submitting observations for. And then I have this question here that lets you skip it if you've already done it. So it says, have you already reported the properties, the GPS point, the height, etc., of the saguaro that you are reporting on during a previous report? If so, and you have nothing else to add, you can select yes below, and then it will skip this section. So I'm going to hit no so you guys can see it. But if you hit no, and this would be if this is the first time you're reporting that info, or you want to add something, like you took another measurement and it came out differently, or you realized there's a second nest or whatever, you can then do this. And so you hit next, and it's going to take you to this section 2, which is establishing saguaro properties and nest hole measurements, height and direction. So what is the name you have chosen for this nesting saguaro? I tended to name mine based on the location, the name of the road that they were near, or the name of the park that they were in. Whatever you want to do is fine, but give it a name that's pretty distinctive. So I had several off of Sahuarita Road near along Alvernon Road, south of Sahuarita Road. So I called those Alvernon 1, Alvernon 2, Alvernon 3. So anything like that that can be a distinctive name for those saguaros is great. Then we need some coordinates, and I explain either UTMs or decimal degrees. And then please include a picture of your saguaro with the nesting hole indicated, an arrow or a circle. And I explained that a bit. And if you have multiple nests within a saguaro, which I had several times last summer, make sure you indicate that in the photo where nest 1 is and nest 2, and continue to use those names for the rest of the season, whatever you call it, or you want to call it south nest, north nest, whatever, however you decide to name them, whatever you're comfortable with, just keep it consistent throughout the season. The height of the saguaro, that's the height of the entire saguaro, so to the highest point. And then the height of the nesting hole above the ground. And then, so this is where those measuring apps are really helpful, or you can use a laser measuring tape can work really well too. Direction of the nesting hole in degrees. And then I have here this question that I've talked about like twice because it's super important, is how did you get those degrees, or the direction, north, northwest kind of thing? Is that in relationship from you to the saguaro or from a martin looking out? So that's pretty important. Either will work totally fine. I just need to know which you did. And what is your saguaro's relationship to a wash? So all those questions we went over on the protocol, they're all here in the form to be entered. And again, it's kind of a lot, which is why I made this a section that can be skipped if you've already entered it. So is there open water near this saguaro? Please describe it below. Is it a pond or park or whatever? And then any other notes or observations about the saguaro? Does the saguaro look healthy? Does the desert habitat look healthy, etc.? Anything you want to note. I saw some saguaros that had active nests last year where like it looked so strange, like the top had been cut off of the saguaros. It was really weird. So, or it had like, sometimes I see saguaros that have a lot of like disease on them or something. And this is where you can note that if you have any such observations or anything positive about them, like, wow, it had lots of fruit on it or whatever. So I'm going to go back now and I'll show you what this looks like if you skip this section. So if you say, yes, I want to skip it, it goes straight to this reporting area. Now, if you go through that section that we just skipped and go to the saguaro and then you hit next, it goes to this section as well. So that lets you just skip that middle section if you already reported it. So then you can do this one with the date of the observations, the time span, and it's going to look a lot similar to what we had last year. Did you use an endoscope camera? So this is where I'm asking if you used it on this visit. And even if you've done the training and you're using an endoscope sometime, it's okay to do visits without one. So this is where you can, or if you're not using one at all, just hit no each time on this. So then I have here, we're trying to like keep it consistent, the codes, because then we're going to try to figure out a timeline, an average timeline from everyone's observations on how the birds nest. So do your observations that you're submitting now include any of the behaviors? So I have pair seed together, copulation, entering nesting holes and saguaros, and you can check as many of these that apply. Nest defense or predator mobbing, chasing, young outside of nest, i.e. fledgling. So just sort of breeding information as well as behavior information. Now this one is specific nest stage, if known, use an endoscope. Use of an endoscope may be needed to determine. So this is mostly for endoscope people, but some of this stuff you might be able to tell without a scope. So things like nest built, no eggs, eggs present, you're gonna need a scope to know that. Chicks, and then the age of the different chick age categories. Fledgling seen near nest, that could happen without a scope. And then, or an empty nest, presuming nesting complete. So this is where you can enter that. And then what behaviors did you observe of watching purple martins? And this is where you can really just go to town and almost like nature journaling, anything you observed can be entered here. And then I have another photo upload folder, file, and you can add up to 1 gigabyte. So even a short video, I think, could fit in this if you have one. And this is just if you have photos of the saguaro or photos of the nests or photos of the martins hanging out on the saguaros. We got a lot of really cool, really fun photos last year. And also if you are using an endoscope, this is where your photos and short videos will go. So we can keep them associated with certain observation events. And it's great too. When I pull this data out, Google Forms actually keeps those photos connected to your observation submission. It's really great. It helps keep everything super organized and together. Is there anything else to add or share? So then if you have anything else you want to say, you can say it here. And then there's a little thank you thing. So then when you're done, you hit submit and you should get an email from Google saying, thank you, your submission was accepted. There's also a link there that lets you edit it. And so it shows up right away, but it's in the email too, where you can edit your response if you need to, or there's a submit another response link if you want to submit another response. Now you want to keep each of your saguaros separate. So if you're watching, let's say 2 saguaros near your house, they each have their own name. You're gonna want to fill, if you go on the same morning and visit both of them, you're gonna want to fill this form out twice. It needs to be 1 submission per saguaro per day. You don't want to be trying to put them both in the same one. That's going to get really confusing and information is going to get probably swapped around by accident. So I hope this is helpful. I thought this would be easier than writing a big long email, easier on you guys to go through than trying to read a big long detailed email. It's already a big long detailed protocol. But I think putting everything in one place, all within this protocol document, I think is going to be really helpful in the long run. And I hope that these apps, and towards the very bottom of the sort of the last page of the protocol, these helpful apps and examples of field procedures, I hope that's helpful to you. And if you have landed on something you think is really helpful and works really well, please let me know if it's something you're willing to share about. And I definitely need some more recommendations for good apps. So if you have any, please let me know. This is the one I found that worked well for measuring the height of a saguaro, and it was free on Android. It's called Trees. Now, there's a lot of really sophisticated, really cool apps to measure the heights of things that were super expensive. This one was free, and it's meant like for arborists, but it worked great for anything like a tree, so like a saguaro as well. But if you guys have suggestions for apps on compass direction, height, measuring height, GPS, anything that you think is helpful, please let me know, and I'll make this info available for everybody. So thank you so much. And if you have any questions about the 2021 season and what we're doing and what's going on, please let me know. We are going to be doing, at the end of the season, we'll be doing an exclusive sneak peek at the data just for you guys first, for the volunteers first. And another thing to really keep in mind is that very little is known about the roosting behavior of these birds. So nesting, of course, is very unknown on them and very interesting to look at. But the roosting is something too that has not been well documented in these birds. So we had some observations this May into June of birds, of desert purple martins congregating like in pre-breeding season roosts. I and many others have observed them roosting during the breeding season in small groups. And sometimes it seems to be just males during the breeding season. Presumably the females are sitting in the nest and the males are like hanging out together since their day is done. They've finished feeding maybe, and then they're kind of congregating. They're very social birds. So they tend to gather in these little groups and then hang out. And then maybe go to roost together since they're not going to fit in the nest. It's hard to know for now, but any observations you have of roosts are incredibly helpful. It can be entered in that same form, especially that roost observation form from level 2. But another thing that's really interesting is that post-breeding, when the birds are done nesting, they congregate in these areas and sort of wait in a large group for days, weeks, maybe even, waiting for everyone who maybe nested a little bit later or had a failed nest and had to try again early in the season. They gather in these areas and they hang out with the fledglings, and all the adults gather and wait for all their compatriots to be finished and ready to migrate. And then they'll seem to all leave from that location together as a migratory group. So if you observe these gatherings towards the end of the season, like late August into September, maybe even into October. I think they tend to leave by the end of September though. But if you find any of these roosting sites, they seem to be several throughout Tucson and around Tucson, down in Green Valley and Sahuarita, and north of Tucson near San Manuel and Mammoth. Please do report them on that level 2 form or towards, or report them on the main detailed form. However you want to do it, please do let us know though, because we are really looking for more information about these birds, especially with their roosting, which is, I think, definitely understudied and can be really fun to know where they're roosting and other behaviors that they're exhibiting. Then we can compare and see if it's different from the eastern birds. Well, thank you so much for watching this information. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for helping with the 2021 Desert Purple Martin season.